Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. It's been announced that Daniel Dubois will face the relatively unknown Ebenezer Tetteh of Ghana at the end of September at the Royal Albert Hall. It will be for the vacant Commonwealth title. So because that's vacant, that means that Joyce has vacated the belt. He was the holder for the best part, of a year and a half since he beat Lenroy Thomas. So this fight involving Dubois and Tetteh. I'll get to a couple of quotes from Daniel Dubois and then some thoughts, because even though they're dressing this one up as a competitive fight of sorts, I think this is going to be another sort of Richard Lartey repeat, a guy out of Ghana, not much of a profile, even less than Richard Lartey, and that is really saying something. Tetteh is a guy who's got a very padded record, faced very poor opponents in general, 19-0, and really this is feeding him to Daniel Dubois to give Dubois some more experience. Another win over an unbeaten opponent. Tetteh at 31 really hasn't done much in the division, so I think really this is selling his own probably for his biggest payday of his career. This will be, I believe, his first fight outside of Ghana. Yes, it is. So I think this is going to be a cash-out fight for Tetteh, who has appeared in the WBO rankings sporadically in the past year or two, but really this feels like it's another sort of feeding him to a lion. In terms of the press release, Daniel Dubois says, "This is a natural progression for me because I want to win every title available to me on my way to becoming a world champion. I've won the Southern Area, English and British titles already, so I'm heading down what people call the traditional route, while also gaining international experience and rankings by winning the WBC Youth, WBO European and Global titles. So I believe this is the ideal next step for me against an unbeaten fighter with a lot of KOs to his name. It should make for an exciting fight at the Royal Albert Hall, and I cannot wait to get back there and do my thing." So that card will also feature Nicola Adams. So this is the promo poster here, and they haven't even featured Tetteh in it, which is never a good sign. And actually, when you go online and try to find, much about Ebenezer Tetteh, and bear in mind, I'm a hardcore boxing fan. I follow the heavyweight division very closely. And apart from the odd time when he's scheduled to fight, and this is his record here. So he was meant to fight at the weekend. I'd already seen that he was meant to be fighting. There was no opponent, and BoxRec still doesn't have the information. We don't even know if he did fight just over this past weekend. So that kind of tells you, some of the opponents that he's going to be facing, either short notice or they can't even get information about the bout. And that is never a good sign. Not featured in the promo poster. And as I mentioned, Richard Lartey, and he didn't have much of a profile, but you could find a Facebook page for him where, he wasn't updating it, or you could find that he had a promoter that was talking about him periodically. But for this guy, Ebenezer Tetteh, very hard. I did some research trying to find out a bit more about him. Just not a lot on him, even less than Richard Lartey, and that is saying something, because you might recall I was saying Richard Lartey was a bit of an enigma. We didn't really know anything about him. We know far less about this guy Ebenezer Tetteh, so very hard for me to assess what sort of fighter he is. But running down his record and going back to it, so it's 19-0. He's 31 years old, doesn't have a height, doesn't have a reach. That's never a good sign in terms of his profile. And then you look at some of the opponents that he's been facing. A lot of them, just flat out journeymen, a lot of them with losing records. It's never a good sign when a guy is coming into a fight against someone like a Daniel Dubois with absolutely zero hype, and you can just patently tell it's a padded record. But in terms of Daniel Dubois in this fight, we have to bear in mind, he's 12-0. He is just sort of getting that seasoning right now that he needs. So I don't want to say that I'm mad at the fight, because the guy's only 12-0, and it is for a Commonwealth title, and Ebenezer Tetteh out of Ghana is eligible to fight for it. But it does make me wonder, why did Joyce vacate it? I haven't seen anything on that, so it does make me wonder why. He is under the Frank Warren banner now, co-promoted by Warren. So maybe he's been convinced, give this up, we can give this to... Maybe they're going to look to set the two up for a fight down the line, which would seem to make sense now that Daniel Dubois has just beaten another stablemate, Nathan Gorman. So if they can pair those guys off at some point, I mean, maybe Joyce is a logical progression step in 2020 in terms of Daniel Dubois before he gets to world level. I don't know. There could be a whole range of things that are going on here, but Joyce has dropped the belt. But I guess for Joyce, he's also got the WBA gold title. He's got other options he can go down. He's the mandatory to Ajit Kabiel's EBU title. So it's not like Joyce is without options, but just dropping the belt. I mean, maybe they just didn't want to face the likes of an Ebenezer Tetteh at this point. Maybe they thought that Joyce was aiming for bigger things now, that he's obviously gotten past a guy like Bryant Jennings recently. Whereas for Daniel Dubois, who is a bit greener than Joyce in terms of, not in terms of the number of fights, but I mean just experience in general. Dubois is only 21 years old. He's 12-0. He just beat a fellow prospect, his stablemate Nathan Gorman, and now he steps into a Commonwealth title fight against a relatively unknown, unheralded, and I think we're going to see he's going to be laid out flat on his back, Ebenezer Tetteh, at the end of September at the Royal Albert Hall. So I'm not necessarily mad at the fight, but I'm not necessarily gagging for it either. I don't think this is one of these fights that any of us really sort of were clamoring for, and I know that there will be a whole bunch of people looking up Ebenezer Tetteh to try find out, who is this guy? What's he all about? But I can't imagine that this is going to be one of those fights that it's going to be, you know, a lot of hype and buzz for it, because one, Daniel Dubois doesn't really sell fights. He does his talking in the ring. But Ebenezer Tetteh, his profile is almost less than nothing. And that's pretty hard in this day and age of social media. But I'll leave it there. But what do you make of it all? Ebenezer Tetteh facing Daniel Dubois at the end of September at the Royal Albert Hall. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.